Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Jay Helms, and I'm the founder of this podcast and movement known as the W2 Capitalist. Today, I have amazing guests with us, Matthew Porcaro. Hopefully, I got that right.
Yep.
Matthew and I have been trying to connect for a while, and I was just joking with him before I hit the record button. I probably need to start off every episode by apologizing to our guests because I've had to reschedule. We do have 3 little germ factories that we absolutely love run around our house. They're all under 5 right now. So everybody has actually been sick this week, Matthew. So it's only Wednesday. So
That time of the year.
yeah, it is. It is. And I know, and we don't necessarily, so we're in Pensacola, Florida, and we get these crazy temperature swings, right? Where it'll change 30 or 40 degrees in one day. And it happens quite frequently. It helps boost the economy around here, I guess, when tourist season's gone.
Yeah.
And it helps boost all the doctors and whatnot. But anyway, you're up in New York, and you are coming to us from the 203K way, which is a topic I'm interested in, the 203K loan, something I've never used before. But I know you obviously are, right? You've got an ebook out, the FHA loan every new real estate investor needs to know about, which I wish I knew about before I started because I didn't. But a little personal thing about you, you're in New York City, right? That's the skyline behind you?
Yep. It is. I'm right outside of it, right in Queens. Yeah, but I'm looking at Manhattan.
It's a beautiful, beautiful view out your window. I don't use the video on this, but I get the benefit of it. The listeners will not. But you were, for some reason in my notes here, it says you were recently married. Is that right?
Yeah, somewhat. Last 2 years.
Okay.
We actually just celebrated our second anniversary on November 11th. So a couple
Congrats.
days. Yeah, man.
Congrats. So you learning to say yes, ma'am, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, the first thing I said, we were really traditional with everything. We didn't really move in together officially until we got married. So pretty old school. We moved in together, and, I always tell everyone that, they say, how is it living together? I say, ask Michelle, ask my wife. I'm
best answer.
She's a pleasure. Man. Everything. Yeah. She's a pleasure to be around. I'm maybe not so much. Especially recently, I've been working from home a lot. She's like, I leave in the morning and you're here, and I come home and you're here. She's like, you're always here. So
you might need to find a break from that. It is an adjustment period, and I did actually quite the opposite. I went from working from home for the last 10 years into an office setting just 6 months ago, which I'm still doing. Which is part of the reason why we do these so early in the morning. So it doesn't even look like the sun's up where you're at. It's definitely not up where I'm at. So
right. Hey man, it's good. And I'm early doesn't bother me, but no, it's great. I'm glad that you do it. Right. That's the whole point of this podcast, right? W2 Capitalist. We gotta grind on the off hours, and that's what it's all about.
We do. And speaking of W2, so your W2 is electrical engineer / project manager by trade, right? We're just talking about that just a little bit.
Yes, sir. So, so I basically grew up in the construction business. My dad is a general contractor, small shop, just him and my mom basically running the thing, and him and another guy. So then I went to college, went for electrical engineering, thought I was going to do something cool like defense contracting and build like airplanes and fighter jets and put the control systems in there and stuff, and went to our career fairs at my college, and everyone that was hiring was a construction company. I never thought I would do growing up, it's like you don't want to do what your dad does, and to a fault. You're in that like age when you're in your teens, and I was working with him every summer, right? So, I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm going to do something cool, right? And lo and behold, the thing I went into was construction in New York City, which, luckily has a lot of work that's been going on. So, I went into electrical construction, and that's what I've been doing ever since I graduated.
Yeah. I imagine you made your dad proud, right? Following his footsteps, so to speak. And I say that tongue in cheek because I think I'm sure I've let my father down a lot, but um, I think you almost spit coffee out. But anyway,
I did.
I think the biggest letdown, he's now a retired fireman. He served for 30 something
Oh, that's
years.
amazing. Cool, man.
And I think he always tried to get me to very light-handed push me in that direction. And I think
Hmm.
the biggest letdown is I was like, one day I just told him, Dad, I don't have the stomach for it.
Yeah.
I can't see what you guys see and do
Oh,
what you guys
geez.
do.
Yeah.
And I just don't. So anyway,
Hey, but I'm sure, hey, listen, what you're doing now is incredible in its own way. So,
thank you. I appreciate that. And but he's an
that's,
old school guy, right?
I
I've tried
know,
to
I
get
feel
him
you.
on the investment track, and he's and of course he's one of these guys who never had a credit card. I don't think he has a checking account. Pays for everything in cash. Like when bills are due, he'll drive around town,
Yep.
pay them in cash, and
Sounds like
so
my dad. Yep.
he's sitting on some money that I'm trying to help him use, in
Right.
his retirement years. But I want to be respectful of that. If you want to jump on, you can jump on, but I know his answer, and it's
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. You throw it out there. You're doing your duty. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you
I
can
got
do.
I got a quick no. I need to move on. So, but so you live in New York,
Hmm.
Queens area, but where do you invest? Do you invest in New York as well?
Yeah. So, there's a suburb of New York City, which is Long Island. I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar from there. It's a little bubble.
Yeah,
It could be its own state. Very competitive. One of the
it
highest
is in some
taxes.
ways, right?
Yeah, it's one of the highest taxes and property taxes in the nation. I think
Yeah.
it's top three, something like that. So very competitive market, but that's where I grew up, about an hour outside of where I am right now. So I've been investing, in New York since 2015, and looking to continue there. Like I said before, I never thought I would get into construction. And wrapping back into it, I'm like, okay, my dad was never my dad's blue collar, like
Yeah,
your dad, you know what I mean? Just
absolutely.
never, he's a great contractor, but business wise, it's tough. He was
Yeah,
never, he's good at building. He wasn't always good at like being the analytical mind and like doing all the paperwork and business
he's a
stuff and
great
everything, right?
tradesman, but not so sharp on the business part of it.
Right, right. And my mom really filled in the blanks there, but that's part of my story and why I got into this was I saw a lot of the struggle growing up, of owning your own business, a contracting business, and then over time, like getting squeezed by people now that contracting is such a low barrier of entry. I'm sure
Yeah,
that, dealing with
yeah.
contractors and what you get out there. You have a guy like my dad who's super old school. He just turned 70. We were just actually in Mexico for his 70th birthday. He didn't want to go, like we were saying, you want to go to the motherland, go back to Italy. And he was like, yeah, maybe, but I want to go to Riviera Maya, at the Hard Rock, and go to an all-inclusive and just drink tequila on the beach with a cigar. So that's what we did for a week, and it was awesome.
Not a bad way to spend your
Yeah.
birthday, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, it was
At
great.
any age.
Exactly. So it was cool, and that's what he likes. But and really, what I saw was like, all right, listen, I have this construction background, which for a lot of people is a struggle, right? In this industry, and then but then I'm bringing to the table like finding the deals, dealing with the financing, all that stuff, so he can just focus on doing the work and running the work. And we've been a team, actually, in this real estate thing, and it's something. It's of course, you never know what way you're going to go in life, but it was an interesting way in how we're keeping a relationship, keeping close, and everything like that, and doing business together, which is really cool.
Yeah. So before I forget, you have a pretty cool hat on, by the way. Tell me about that. Capital Pig with a big old piece of ham on it. I mean,
Yeah,
Tell
man.
me about
So
that. That's a
it's
pretty.
it's really funny. I put it on and I didn't put it on. I realized, your show is called, your whole community is called W2 Capitalist. And I wear this hat all the time. This is a hat from a guy named Steve Larson. Steve
Okay.
Larson is a big marketing guy. He's he's like big with like promoting your product and like, promoting, helping people build their business when they're experts on a topic. Right. So I don't know the whole story behind it, but basically, someone maybe like said something that he's, acting like a capitalist pig or something like that. And he
Yeah.
was like, hell yeah, I am. I'm a capitalist pig. That's what
Yeah.
I do. He's like, I create money, but I also create jobs and I pay other people's bills and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of like a tongue in cheek thing.
Yeah.
I love it. My last name, Porcaro, actually means pig farmer in Italian.
Okay.
So it was a combination of two things. I have an affinity toward pigs and pork. And
I like to
yeah,
eat
man.
them.
Yeah, but he's got, no, exactly. I love to eat them. I always wondered why I really love bacon. And
There you go. It's in the name, man.
And I think it's because it's my genetics, man. I'm meant to eat this stuff. So, it was a cool combination of stuff. You look him up. I think it's called capitalismswag.com.
Okay.
And I don't actually really know Steve. It's a shameless plug for him. But
No,
I love the concept. And, I don't want to get into politics too much, at all on this show. But it was very funny. Recently, I was wearing this hat, and I walked through a Bernie rally, and
I'm
Bernie
sorry.
Sanders. Yeah, it was weird. I was getting a lot of weird looks and scowls from people, and I don't think people knew what I was really wearing, but it was just like a funny thing. I had no idea where I was going. I'm like, uh-oh.
This is where I'm
they're
at, right?
Right. They're very anti-capitalism. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Who knows what they were protesting about? But
Yeah. No, it was funny. It was just a funny timing thing. But yeah, man, it's a good gig.
And the reason why I bring that up, or part of the reason I do think it's a really cool hat. I'm gonna look up, try to find one. But the RIA here in Pensacola, and Matt Robinson, who leads that up, he's gonna kill me if he hears this and hear that I call it a RIA, because he doesn't consider it a RIA. But it's PIG, Professional Investors Guild, is what PIG stands for. And he's got a banner he always puts up, Capitalist Pig. Right.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just thought it was a good connection, but I like the hat. I may get one of those hats for him.
Yeah. Steve's a cool guy. He's got a lot of cool content about like promoting your brand and stuff like that.
Very, very cool. So let's talk about the 203K, right?
Yeah.
It's a loan, and I'm going to let you dive into this because I've never used it, but I've heard about it. I know friends who have done it. But before we do that, tell me why you are the expert to lead us down this conversation.
So, man, why am I the expert? Well, I think it's just a passion, number one. And I'll give you a little backdrop on why it's a passion for me. So, similar to your story, similar to many people's stories, growing up, I again, worked in my family was blue collar. Investing, stuff like that was like never a thing
that's what a rich man's game, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So the idea of investing, the idea of buying multiple houses, I mean, that was just outlandish. Right. So growing up, the grass was greener for my dad. He's like, you don't want your own business. You want to work for someone. You want to get a good job.
Yeah.
A good 9 to 5, have a paycheck every week. That's the dream. Right. So went to school.
Our dads hung out in a former life. For sure.
A lot of them did. Right. A lot of them kind of come from that background. Listen,
it's different times though, it's not they were giving us bad advice. I've actually had this discussion with somebody else about, when our kids, and when you guys start having kids, you'll start thinking this way too. But if I start teaching them how to invest now, let's talk about what happens in 30 years down the road. Is it still going to be a good vehicle for them to use? Or am I going to be the old man who, and I'm using air quotes, Dad, he's never going to listen to this, doesn't know what podcast is. Actually, he does. Though I told him he was asking, "What is a podcast?" I was like, you know how you listen to your talk shows on AM radio? This is a talk show, but it's on a different delivery media."
Right.
And he got it. I was like, okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's a great way of
But
explaining
he'll
it.
never listen to it. He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't even have a cell phone. Back to the things that. That's not true. He has a flip phone.
Oh, cool. Fancy.
Yeah. But and this is what happens. I go off on these tangents and I forget what I was going to say.
No worries. Yeah, no, I think again, like, the idea is just really that, our fathers and that generation just,
it was different.
They
Man.
saw
Was
investment. Yeah. They saw
Yeah.
investing and all that kind of stuff, owning your own business, owning your own business for my dad was a challenge and something you didn't want to do. Right. Cause he saw the bad side of it. Right. A lot of them businesses fail. Now, lo and behold, he's been doing it for 30 some odd years, knock on wood, still has the business to this day. So he's surviving. Many businesses don't. He's surviving but we've seen a lot of up and downs. And so, I wanted to avoid that volatility. That was something growing up that left a lasting impression on me. Right. It's funny because, we had lots of good times but lots of bad times too. And of course, when you're an impressionable young kid, you remember the bad times and you wonder like, hey, why are we like, starving this month and can't pay the bills and everything like that. And then like this kid's dad down the block is fine because he works for someone. Right. So that was always instilled in me. So, fast forward, I go to college, when I'm looking for things to go to school, I was very money driven. Right.
Yeah.
Because of that, and almost to a fault. Right. And I, went to my guidance counselor. I'm like, where can I make the most money? Right. And, my guidance counselor is like, hey, you're really good at physics. You're really good at science. Try engineering. They get paid the most out of college, more than anyone else. Right. After 4 years. Right. I hated, I wasn't really a school guy. Right. I didn't want to be in school long term. I'm like, how can I get in there for 4 years and get out and get paid the most? So engineering was it. So that's what I did. And, it was tough, man. It was tough as hell. Electrical engineering degree is no joke. I didn't know what I was doing, but I got through. I'm kind of that person, and I'll tell you a little bit more about. You'll see that with my 203K story. But I'm kind of a person just whatever I got to do, I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And I just get through, even if it's by the skin of my teeth. I make it happen. So while I'm there, I started interning. And I'm working, and this is like really my first experience of like working corporate America, right? Working for the man. And I think it was like the first year of my internship. I'm like, this isn't how you get rich. Like I just was kind of putting it together. I'm like, there's no way this isn't how you get, I'll make money, but this isn't how you get rich. And, I was walking down the street one day and I heard Rich Dad Poor Dad was a great book. And there was a guy selling books on the street.
Wow.
And the Rich Dad Poor Dad book was there. And I bought it, read it, right? So freaking cliche at this point. Everyone, but that book does a lot of good stuff for a lot of people.
Books
and I read it.
A lot of lives, mine
It does.
So.
It does. And read it. And I was like, oh, okay. But at the end of it, I was like, yeah, but I can't buy multiple things of real estate. Let me like start my own business. So that started me down this whole career of like trying my own side gigs, right? My own side hustles. Tried everything, from trading stocks to creating selling affiliate offers and creating, doing email campaigns, all kinds of internet ways to make money, right?
Yeah.
And then real estate just always seemed so far like in the ethos. Like
I feel like you're telling my story, by the way.
Yeah. You know what? One of the cool things about getting on these podcasts and stuff and talking with a lot of people now that I've been involved in like the community a lot more with this 203K thing is like everyone comes from kind of the same background. Right?
Yeah.
And it's fun. And that's awesome. And it's cool to know that I'm not the only one. You know what I mean? It was like, because I like to say all the time, like this entrepreneurship thing and real estate thing, it's a lonely game, man. No one understands. Like you said before, your dad doesn't understand it. You know what I mean? Like my dad still kind of doesn't understand it. Right.
Yeah.
So my wife doesn't understand it. It's hard to do this stuff. And, this is why things like this podcast and the community that you have on Facebook are huge, because you need to be around people like that because they're the ones that are going to push you through it. But, So where was I? So basically I didn't really think too much about real estate, but tried a bunch of things, tried to make money. Then listened to a podcast and there was some guy talking about how you can buy real estate with no credit and no money. And I was like, that's crazy. I thought it was for, like you said, like old rich dudes, right?
Yeah.
That, old, trust fund guys that have a ton of money that are the only people in the world that can buy multiple houses. Me, I'm like, I can't buy one house. Screw it. Like, especially in my market, man, the average house price is like 500K. So I'm like, there's no way I'm buying a house, anytime soon. This is me when I was somehow 23 years old. So I look into it, and that's when I discovered wholesaling as we know it, right? And so that for me was like, oh man, it was like a huge like eye opener. I was like, oh, okay, like for most people. And I went all in on it, and started like buying courses and buying books, and I kind of went down that rabbit hole and tried everything, man. Did the signs, did the direct mail, oh man, everything you could think of that involves wholesaling, made websites, tried to drive traffic, spent a lot of time, a lot of money. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, I didn't get anything. Got some cold leads, some warm leads, but nothing ever transpired. I don't know if it's because my market was so competitive. I don't know if it's because, some of the rules and regulations here in New York with wholesaling. It seemed like everyone that was wholesaling had a realtor's license. So I just couldn't crack it, man. And it sucked because I really saw I was really sold on this real estate thing. And I felt like I just had put so much time and effort into it. And, signed up for a bunch of mentorship programs. One I paid a whole lot of money for, which was a wholesaling one. It was trash. That one really hurt me. And,
Which one was that? Do you remember?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to blast the guy on the show.
Okay.
But, if you want me to, I mean, I
you
don't
tell me
care.
afterwards if you want.
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
No, it was crap.
Yeah.
So, that was a big one. And then there was my local RIA, and there was another one. And, me and my dad, I was like, all right, let's do this one together, Dad. Like, she kind of sold us on she's the president of our local RIA. She kind of sold us on like, okay, well, maybe I felt like all the challenges were like within my market. Like our market's just really tough, still is. And maybe like she'll shed some light on it. She sold us on the fact like, listen, you have one of the biggest, parts in the puzzle, which is you guys understand construction. So we did, and we jumped in it, and, we went to the first couple courses, me mostly, my dad was like kind of a silent partner in it. And we're learning the same crap that I've learned from every book, and like, finding deals, find ARV, times it by 70% minus the rehab, like just like a lot of cliche stuff. And I'm like, man, what the hell? So this is a long story, and I'm going to bring it all together right here. But basically, I pulled, her name is Melissa, and she's still the president of RIA. And I brought her to the side one day, and I was able to get her to the side for a little bit. I'm like, Melissa, you're extremely successful. She's an all-star. I mean, she runs multiple businesses, has a couple hundred units, maybe even 1,000 at this point, has like 7 kids, I think. President of the RIA, she's like a superwoman, right?
Yeah.
And
7 kids. Let's end there and say she's a superwoman.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible. Doing all that plus being a monster investor, right? So I'm like, I'm like, I'm at the time, whatever, 24 years old. I got some money in the bank, couple grand. What would you do if you were me, right? I've tried wholesaling. She's like, well, listen, I've never done it, but there's a thing out there called a 203K loan. It's a renovation loan. And what you could do is you can buy distressed property for only 3.5% down. You have to live in it, but you only got to live in it really for a year. And then, so we basically do a live and flip and move out and repeat the process. And I said, okay. I've been trying to crack real estate for 3 years. No one's mentioned this before. She's like, yeah, there's some red tape and there's some things with it, but I know this is what people are doing right now. And with what the money you have and the position you're in, this is your best bet. So basically I went home, researched the crap out of this. Lo and behold, there's really no info on it.
Mm-hmm.
The 203K is, like I said, kind of the best kept secret in real estate. And the reason being is there is red tape and there is work that goes into it. And what I found out the hard way is, there are people out there that are pros at this, and you have to find them. The issue is they're hard to find, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to fall into the trap that I did. So fast forward some time, work got very busy. I had another side business that actually was going really well, and I was saving, right? I was just caking it away. I was getting ready to get engaged, saving for a ring, all that stuff. And I was going to my 9 to 5 job, every day. And I was driving home. It was just a random thing popped into my head. My head's always moving. And I'm like, I'm sipping my Starbucks on my drive back to work. And I'm like, I got some money in my account, right? I think I was like finally for the first time in my life hit like 5 figures in my bank account, right?
Nice.
Had about 10 grand. And I was like, what can I do with this? Like I should be invested. Like this shouldn't be sitting in the bank account. And, I got back to my office and I'm like, let me find out about this 203K thing. So I called the only mortgage broker that I knew, who was a family friend. Fast talking guy, typical New York, fast talking salesman broker guy. Right. So, I call him up and I'm like, do you guys do that 203K thing? He's like, yeah, man, we do that. It's definitely the best thing. Like, oh, that'd be perfect for you, bro. Like, let's jump on it. Let's do it. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And he's like, send me this. So like, he's a family friend, known him a long time. He's my cousin's best friend growing up. So he's always been around and like I trusted him, right? I think anyone else, and I think this was a pivotal moment because anyone else, any other mortgage broker that was asking me for all this information, I probably just wouldn't have given it to him. I would have been freaked out. But I'm happy he did push me. And he took everything down and then he's like, oh, I need your social. I was like, why? He's like, well, I'm just going to do a credit pull. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, no, don't worry. And so he did it. He's like, all right, I'm going to get you pre-approved for this, blah, blah, blah. He's like, all right, so this is where I search for properties. And he sent me a bunch of links. He's like, go look at some properties. And within an hour, he's sending me properties, right?
Nice.
I had been looking for properties for a while, right? But what I like to tell people all the time in my following is like, unless you're making offers, you're not looking.
Yeah.
Not looking for properties. People love to tell me all the time, I can't find deals in my market. Okay. How many offers did you place this week? Well, none. Okay. So you're not looking, you're browsing, you're flicking through
surfing.
Zillow.
Yeah.
and you're looking at asking price and you're taking that as truth, which is baloney, but I won't get too far into that. But anyway, so he's like, listen, you got to start like looking at these properties, making some offers on them. So one of the cool things I learned about the 203K is that you're able to bid on properties that are distressed. So let me dial it back really quick because I don't think I got into this right much and explain the 203K, right? The 203K loan is an FHA loan, right? So it allows you to put down a minimum of 3.5% of your purchase price plus the rehab cost. Now that's what you can do with the 203K loan. The 203K loan, you're able to estimate and forecast what the renovation is going to be to get your property up to snuff of where you want it to be. And you're able to wrap that into your mortgage. So I'll give you an example, obviously with my deal. So what ended up happening was I was looking for different properties and, the best way to leverage the 203K loan, if you're looking to live in the property, which you have to, and kind of make some cash flow and house hack it, right, is you want to look for small multifamilies. So what I did, now there wasn't many in my market. One came online very quickly after I got started. And there's a cool thing about the 203K loan that, or about some of these Fannie Mae foreclosures that they have out there, is that they give first-time home buyers and owner occupants a first look period. So when a federal foreclosure goes up on the market, there's like a 10 to 20 day grace period where only owner occupant people, only like first time home buyers, people using FHA loans, renovation loans, are able to bid on the property, and the banks have to entertain any reasonable offer. So it's a way for the government. Yeah, it's a cool program, and it's a way to kind of, instead of just have these investors over and over again, it's kind of the whole point of this FHA 203K loan was the FHA's the FHA's response to trying to get some of these like distressed foreclosures off the market, right?
Right.
In my market, buying a house move-in ready is tough as a millennial. It just is. There's
Yeah.
500K is the average price in the market, right? So
You don't make that now? Come on.
yeah, man, it's brutal, right? I don't care who you are. Saving up 100K for a down payment is brutal, right?
Yes.
And so this was a cool thing for me because I'm like, wow, now I could buy something that's distressed. Maybe it'll bid on foreclosures, which typically foreclosures are only cash only, but they will entertain renovation loans because the point of the renovation loan is it's not like a bank loan where they're going to do an inspection and they're going to look and say, hey, this isn't inhabitable. What they're going to do is they're going to do an inspection with someone who's called a 203K consultant, and they're going to walk through and they'll say, this is what it's going to cost to get it up to snuff and make it habitable. And then you wrap that into the loan. So fast forward a little bit, I found a duplex. I found a 2-family, pretty close to where I wanted to be, very close, between my work and my home, that where I was living. And I went over there and he's like, yeah, this looks great. This would be a cash cow for you. It was cheap, right? I really couldn't afford anything too crazy because, I was, at the time, just a single income. Right.
Yeah.
And, I was looking at the bottom of the barrel, man. And this one was it. Walked into the house. I was able to get in there very quick. It got on the market. It was a piece of junk, man. I found out it was a previous drug home, like crack house kind of thing. They were selling drugs out of the front window.
Everybody needs one of those in their portfolio at some point in time.
They sure do, man. It's a good learning experience.
Mine was a meth house. It wasn't crack, but it was
meth house. That's scary because there's like a whole remediation process and stuff you need to do, probably, right?
It was interesting. Oh, we tore it down and put
okay. Well, there you go.
So
this one wasn't quite that, but there was a guy squatting in there, and he was using the bathroom even though the plumbing wasn't working.
Sure.
So you walked in there and just greeted by beautiful smells, and I'm in there. I'm like, hell no. And then I have this mortgage broker who's like, you got to do it. You got to do it. My dad's like, it's not that bad of work, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, I'm going to like spend all I have on this thing.
On this dump is what you're thinking. Yeah.
So what I did though is so the way that one of the first ways that you really leverage this 203K loan is look at it through the eyes of an investor, right? So the crazy thing about a 203K loan is if you're just doing it, it's still a great vehicle. If you're just a first time home buyer looking to buy a fixer upper, right? It's a great way to use it. The FHA loan actually lets you finance. This is one of the only ones that's crazy. They let you finance renovation plus purchase price 110%.
Yeah.
It's a little scary.
It's awesome. It can be scary. You're right.
But so you can like make it your own, right? Like make it how exactly you want it. If you're not looking to make it an investment, you're just looking to get in there and, make it your own, your house, which is perfectly fine. But what I did was I'm like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for 2 things. When I'm done with the rehab, am I going to have enough to refinance out? Am I going to have some equity on there that I could take out later? And the second thing is I want to make sure that it cash flows. If and when I move out, number one, where will I be with me living in there for that year? Okay. And then number 2, when I move out, how much is it going to cash flow? So I did the math on it, and this is the math. So I picked up the property for $270. All right. We got, we brought a couple contractors in. My dad's a contractor, but he wasn't able to be the contractor on the loan because conflict of interest. He's my dad. And we were living under the same roof at the time as the business. Gotcha. So it was just a whole thing, which we found out during the loan process. But, now,
can you, when you have a 203K loan, sorry to interrupt you.
No.
But when you have a 203K loan, can you choose, and this may vary from, it wouldn't vary from state to state because it's a federal program, right? So, are you allowed to use your own general contractors, or do you have to pick from a select list? The bank says, okay, these are 203 approved contractors.
So one of the biggest misinformations out there about this loan is that there's such thing as a 203K contractor.
Okay.
It's not a thing. There's people, you have to get the bank. So there's FHA guidelines, FHA 203 guidelines that are federal, right? They're blanket. The lender is able to add a rider on it, and they're able to put in their own qualifications. So I can't speak for every lender. My lender required them to show their obviously full licenses, how long they've been in business, kind of fill out like a little statement, make sure all their licenses are up to date, everything, licenses, insurance. That should be what everyone goes for, number one. Second thing is they check like what your financial backing is. Are you, they check your credit line, stuff like that. Do you have a credit line to get started with material and stuff? All very important things. One of the things, I obviously have a lot of people in my community now that are interested in this loan, and they come up to me and they're like, contractors say that 203K is a pain in the butt, and, they don't give you money up front, and, they can't get started without a deposit. I'm like, if your guy can't ramp up $5,000, he's not the contractor you want to use.
Exactly.
He's a fly-by-night guy. He's taking your deposit. You think any contractor that's taking your deposit and needs that to start up is actually using it? He's using it to pay.
He's using it
to
pay off his other
bills.
job.
Yeah, man. And listen, I'm not even up front. I know my dad did it at times because times are like, listen, I get it. But the reality of it is, for this type of project, that's not who you're looking for. So there's a couple tips that I learned on how to get the best 203K contractors, which I'll kind of wrap everything up with. But there's no 203K approved contract. They have to be approved, but there's no like set list. So I think just getting back to the numbers on the property. So I picked it up for 270. We estimated it was going to be about 80,000. So I put 80,000 additional onto the loan. So it was all in for 350. 350 was my loan amount, purchase price plus rehab. I did some ARV research, and I looked at what was going around, and I figured I could get probably 480 when I was done doing the rehab on this.
Nice.
It was a full gut rehab. We had to rip everything down to the studs. It was a big, big rehab. That's kind of where the construction part came in with me. It was nice. It wasn't as intimidating. Most people would have never picked up this property. It might still be on the market. It was brutal.
Yeah.
But we knew what we needed to do. There was some structural work involved, stuff like that. But lo and behold, I got into it. There was a lot of issues on the way. The biggest thing that I want people to know if they're interested in this 203K loan is that your lender will make or break this entire process. Here's the thing about mortgage brokers. They all want your business. You got to pay their bills, kind of similar to the contractor, right? Without you signing your loan, they don't put food on their table, right? So they are going to say they can do 203K loans because they want your business. The reality of it is if you don't know this thing backwards and forwards, it will crash and burn because there is a lot of paperwork. It doesn't necessarily need to fall on the borrower. It didn't have to fall on me, but in my situation, it did. So I'm happy that I used, his name's EJ. I'm happy I used him for this loan because he was a family friend. And because of that, he got it through. He literally, at the end of this, we were 4 months into, it took 4 months to close. Okay.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't. Averages on this loan where people that do it is 45 to 60 days, like anywhere else.
Yeah.
But he had to go. He actually got fired from the company that he was writing the loan through. He had to go and plead with them to get this through because the seller was about to back out. The bank was about to back out. He went there, begged and pleaded with them to close this loan. He's like, I don't want my cousins to come beat me up because I made Matt lose his money. So, so when all was said and done, after concessions, so I had the seller pay for closing costs. They actually covered a little bit and then some. After all the financing was done, it's not, people ask me all the time, oh, you didn't put 3.5% down with $9,500. It was $9,500, which is what I put down with concessions and everything. I kind of put down less than 3.5%, which was pretty cool. Yeah. So 9,500 down, we put 80,000 into it. It after 8 months, it went a little longer than it should have. After 8 months, I got it reappraised immediately for 480,000. which is awesome. So I made
Yeah.
130K in equity in one shot. And then very shortly after, we got engaged, me and my wife. So we moved in together, start planning for the wedding, and moved back home. And I rented both units out.
Yeah.
And I knew that both units would rent for about $2,400 a month. Now they're both at $2,500 a month. So I have $5,000 a month income. And then the expenses are $3,000. So I'm cash flowing $2,000 a month on that property right now. So on $9,500, I turn that into $100. It's actually just reappraised for $510.
Nice.
So, you know, $160,000 in equity and $2,000 a month with rental income. And where I want to wrap everything up with this is this whole thing catapulted my real estate career.
Sure.
Without this property, I had no way of breaking into it, right? All the doors opened after this. And the reason being is because I was instead of the guy that was going to the RIA meetings and stuff that was like, I didn't have a deal, I was in this deal club, right? There's a big gap between people that have never done a deal and then the people that have done deals. And I was the guy with the deal now. So now all of a sudden, hard money lenders are coming my way, right?
Yeah.
They're offering me their deals, and there's so many of them now. You know, realtors are like, oh, you did a deal. Okay, well, this is what I have in my pipeline. It opens all the doors. Getting that first one is so important. And the other thing that it did for me was I have equity in that I now use to buy more property. Without that, I had nothing, right? Now I tap into 70,000 any chance I need to buy new property. And I rolled into my second property very quickly after that. So I struggled for so many years. And the reason that, I know that, again, long-winded answer, but the reason why I'm an expert in this is because I took it upon myself when I was done with this whole rehab, right? I'm looking around, I'm smelling the new paint on the walls, and I'm like, man, I don't know why more people don't know about this. It drives me nuts. Like, this is how people should start. Like, this is the way. Like, I tried everything and nothing worked. And this was finally the one that came to fruition. And I was like, I gotta let more people know about this. And so over time, I started, answering, I'm, a member on Bigger Pockets, and, friends of mine were like, how the hell did you buy a house? Like, and how you have a rental property? I was 26 I was a landlord, at 26, which is, rare, I guess, to toot my own horn, and
I was not a landlord when I was 26.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out what I wanted it to be.
Yeah. You do. Yeah, exactly. And I was, people are asking me all the time, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How'd you do it? So I saw there was a need, and that's how I started the 203K way. And what's been awesome about this is because I started this, I've connected with so many 203K professionals.
Yeah.
And I've connected with the lenders that do these day in, day out. I've connected with 203K consultants that told me, oh, Matt, why the hell didn't you just call your 203K consultant in the beginning? Because they would tell you who's going to know the best lenders in your county than the 203K consultant in the county. Who's going to know the best 203K qualified contractors other than the 203K consultant, right?
Makes sense.
So a lot of stuff that I'm now giving the information to, my followers and my community is like, okay, here's everything I did. Here's what I did wrong. Here's what not to do. Here's how to do it the right way. And I tell people start to finish really how to do this whole thing. And it's definitely the FHA and real estate's best kept secret. It's not for everyone. People come to me all the time. They're like, how do I do a 203K if I have no income or no job? I said, you don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Quick answer.
Right. I'm not your messiah, man. Listen, this isn't one of those strategies, no money, no credit. You need decent credit. Do you need crazy good credit? It's an FHA loan. No, you need a minimum of 600.
Yeah.
That's not much. You need 2 years of stable income, right? You need a debt to income ratio like 50%, whatever it is, 60% between you and a partner or whatever else that is. Very minimum level of qualifications, but you need to be like a member of society, a taxpayer.
Yeah.
And these are things that you have. But listen, anyone could save up a 3.5% down payment. I like to say that all the time. And if you can't, real estate's not for you. It's just not. If you can't get disciplined on saving 3.5% in whatever market you're in, that's on average saving 20% of your income for a couple months, right? 20%, 6 months to a year. One of the best quotes I've seen out there, and I'm going to butcher this, is that, if you have, if you can't manage $1,000, what makes you think you can manage 100,000?
I'm
right?
with you.
So, yeah, and that's my story. I'm sure
And
you got
that's
some
the 203K way, man. No, that what you said
I'm
was a
sorry if I
long-winded
rambled
answer,
too much,
but
everyone, but
no, it's a
it's
great story.
very in depth, but I
Great,
appreciate everyone listening.
great story. Yeah. So house hacking with a 203K loan is something definitely to look into, unless you're married and got a couple of kids and your wife says no.
Yeah.
Which she is the voice of reason, so I do listen to her. I will
Right.
say this though, and you brought up a good point with the banks. The question isn't, if you're when people start going to interview banks, the question isn't, do you offer a 203K loan? It's, tell me about your 203K experience, right?
Bingo.
Because
Bingo.
I actually, the house we're in now, I attempted to get a 203K loan for it, and right out the gate, the loan originator said, well, I was like, enough said, let's move on to the next topic. I'm not, I went with them, they did fine, but we did not do the 203K piece. And then the other thing you mentioned, that you've got to live in the property for at least a year.
Mm-hmm. I
think, and you're the guy who can correct me, right? Mm-hmm. Is you have to have the intention to live in it for a year. I think there's some gray area there. I've heard of people buying like fourplexes, go through the remodeling process, and it took them a year to get the fourth unit, which they were going to live in, livable. So they had the intent to live in it, but in the meantime, it took them a year to get it up to go. And so they qualified that checkbox, right? It says we had the intent to live here. The rehab just took longer. Now they went without a year of having it produce any kind of income, right? So that was the horrible thing. But they were able to not have to. Well, let me back up. They were able to fulfill that obligation without having to actually move in and move out. So,
right. So, listen, there's some gray area. People do it. I'm not saying.
I'm not suggesting you do that.
I'm not suggesting anyone go out there and do it. Red flags will come up. You got,
follow the rules.
Follow the rules. People ask me all the time, do I have to live in the property? Yes.
Yeah.
If you willingly go in having absolutely no intention on living in that property, at least for the year, that's mortgage fraud. quite honestly, right? Here's, at the end of the day, this isn't something to repeat. You can, but what I kind of said before is it opens so many doors, right? I didn't have to repeat it. I don't want to do a 203K every time. It's a lot of work. I would rather go to a hard money lender, get them to cover 90% of the acquisition costs, right?
Use your equity from
use my equity, right? And it's fast. I'm closing in 10 days, you know what I mean? And as opposed to 4 months, I don't want to have to get my contractor, all the paperwork done and everything like that. So, people ask questions like that all the time, and it's plenty doable. Within that year, listen, I boil it back down to sacrifice, right? This is not your property you're going to live in forever. This is a financial decision. How serious? For me, I was very serious about getting started in this game. I was going to do whatever I had to do. I don't look at, and I'm tainted by it now. And me and my wife talk about it. It's like, I don't look at property as like a home anymore. I look at everything strictly as investing. And, it's funny because, we're looking to move out of this apartment, sooner than later.
You start having kids, man, that'll change. She'll keep you grounded on that.
Right. And it's
not every property is an investment. My wife has done a really good job of keeping me straight on that. And this house is an example of that.
Right. And I know it's there, but right now I'm in full investor mode. And it's one of those things that I was full on. And that's really what I'm promoting is, listen, using the 203K to the maximum advantage of what it gives you, right? You could buy up to a 4 unit, right? You could buy up to a 4 unit. So that means you could either house hack, live for free. I have a guy that follows me, and he's someone I mentor, and he bought a triplex, right? Nice. So he's actually living for free plus getting cash
A
flow, like a
little bit
couple
on
hundred
top.
bucks, a
Yeah.
little bit on top, right? So, and he's got the equity in it. So it's like, I try to tell people like I made like 5,000% ROI in the last 2 years, and no one really believes me.
Yeah.
I do like some Instagram promos and stuff, and like, people just comment, BS,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
actual word. And like, and it's funny because I agree. If people told me that, I wouldn't believe it either. But it's one of those things where if you maximize it to its fullest potential, it really could kick off and catapult your career like it did for me.
Yeah. So Matt, I've got to wrap up here. I've actually got to go get showered and shaved. Well, I'm not shaving, as you can tell.
I was gonna say, don't shave that. That's nice and
No, it's
manicured.
I did trim it up a little bit last week. It was driving me nuts. But anyway, I got to go get ready to go to work.
Hmm.
So take us out of here. Let people know how they can get in touch with you and find out more about the 203K way.
Cool. So I'm most active on Instagram. It's my Instagram handle is the 203K way. That's the first thing. I also have a website where I promote my book and a lender finder tool. So basically what I wanted to do was, kind of like you said before, not get those lenders that are like, oh, well, I don't do them. You want to find the best lenders. I have a tool that's like a one-click tool. It grabs all the data online of basically everything's public information with the 203K. So what you're able to do is click one button, pick your market, and it tells you who did the most 203Ks this year in your market, so that you can go ahead and just call them and know that they're experienced with it. And you can get that over at 203ksecrets.com.
Perfect. I'll make links to all of that in the show notes.
Awesome.
Man, I have enjoyed it. I've learned a lot this morning. And so actually I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I can convince my wife that we need to move into a fourplex.
Oh yeah, man, it's doable. It's
I
at
don't
least
know,
for
man. It's
it's got to be a big fourplex with
it's
3 kids, man.
it is. Yeah, we're almost busting at the seams at now what we've got going on. So, but anyway, another conversation for another time. She'll probably bust in my office here. What are you talking about?
I heard you saying. I heard you said
this.
move.
We're not moving anytime soon. Anyway, Matt, I appreciate it, buddy. I will catch up with you sometime soon. I've enjoyed it. Hopefully we can do it again.
Cool, Jay. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, man.
All right, buddy. See you.